what we receive from I say, what comes up when we feel this sense of harmony and gratitude arising. It feels utterly peaceful, and it feels like a very pure feeling of appreciation, and not something that is longing or craving for more, because it's like in Thai they say im, which means like you're saturated, you're content, you're kind of like you've had a very, very good meal. I was just saying this to the novices this afternoon. I felt like the sense of metta is a settling feeling. So what we receive, if we practice the cultural aspect of gratitude and teach ourselves to observe these things, and we actually receive a lot of contentment, a lot of feeling of security, and sometimes very close to a feeling of an inner mission of wanting to pay back this gratitude, which then leads to our mind developing metta, loving kindness. Like many times, like in a monastery or in a situation where we're on a meditation retreat, we won't run out and suddenly start feeding the poor people or like nursing sick people, but it comes from the heart. So we get a sense of like, this is our stepping stone to developing the heart quality of metta, which is a radiance and a quality that emerges from a sense of like being at peace with oneself, with the surroundings, and having an understanding that there is a lack in the world of that, and it naturally overflows from one's own heart. So actually what we receive is like, yeah, like good energy that we can then share, and this is like through being grateful, through appreciating things, we actually are able to give things. The bigger context of the Buddha's teachings are really that life is always like insatisfactory, and there's always things that are lacking. There's this constant urge to fill in things that are lacking, and the Buddha described this is suffering. This is what we call dukkha, and it's actually the main source of like contentment is when once we've seen how dukkha works, how suffering works, then we feel at peace. Like we try to have a sense of seeing how suffering, how negativity, how frustration arises. This is actually what we're studying, like much more than any theories or so. We watch our own feelings of frustrations every now and again. We watch how dukkha or suffering arises in our mind. And it takes a bit of courage to be able to see suffering. And many times we're forced to see it when we're not ready, and this can be quite shocking. Like say, for example, if a good friend dies, or even if we see in a beautiful forest, so we see a green snake and a big gecko lizard intertwined, eating each other more or less, one biting the other, and none of them giving up. This is like something where we can relate to this feeling of yes, what the Buddha said about everything has got this constant, almost like cruelty around it, like that nothing is really harmonious in that sense. There's always something lacking. There's always eating and being eaten. We see dukkha around us, even in nature. Like we see how our own life is bound up with taking life. Many times indirectly, because we keep sila as good as we can. But when we keep sila, we look at things more refined, and sometimes little things, they leave a huge impact on us, and we feel very, very much like this needs to be changed. There needs to be a relief of all this being in this round of perpetuating the chase of one after the other. For example, dukkha in nature, when we see like the cruelty of animals, or we see how we self are interrelated with eating and being eaten. And we more or less like use our awareness of these things to just like recognize, yes, this is a fact of nature, and this is like how it will always be. At least I see this, at least I'm not expecting it to be otherwise, at least I can face also the difficulties that, that come up, and I don't immediately need to push them away. I can sometimes say, yes, it's fine, like it's uncomfortable. For example, sometimes it's really hot and stuffy in the forest and everything, you just want to escape and run away, but you can't. You're caught in this tropical climate of like oppressing heat. And all you can do is say, yes, hello, that's the way it is, and feel it, and say, okay, this is how the hot season feels. This is how it feels to be baking with sweat, for example. This is all classical teachings in the forest tradition, that you can't just turn on the fan or the air condition. You just have to endure it. You have to be with it, and then you can study it. You can see, okay, actually, when I focus on it, for example, the heat or the unpleasantness or the feeling of like even having a migraine or so, we can just try to really absorb it as an experience. And then that's the miracle of the realization of this is dukkha, this is suffering. Then suddenly we feel relief from that. It's like, yes, I know that it's like this. Don't tell me again. I don't need to know anymore. I know this is the hot season. Just, I'm okay with that. So this is like how we accept like the Four Noble Truths, like the teachings of the Buddha about dukkha. It's like through looking at dukkha, not running away, and trying to integrate it in our awareness and see, okay, this is how it feels. This is how actually my tendency of the body, of the mind reacts to it. And then we can actually say, fine, I've learned something and I'm happy about this. The feeling of having learned something or having seen something, being able to already expect that this is going to be hard, that's like the relief from dukkha. It's like somebody running on a marathon. He knows that he's having dukkha while he's running a marathon. He won't just every now and again say, why me? Why do I have to run marathon? Like he says, I know I'm here to endure this, and I'm trying to manage this while I'm doing this, and I'm sure I'll get out of this. I'm sure this will be over as well. Like if you throw the towel after the first kilometer, then there's a feeling of not having really dealt with the task. Whereas like when one deals with it while doing it, then actually one develops a sense of like, yeah, kind of like being ahead of the whole thing and being on top of it and being a bit like, yeah, not threatened by it. It's what we signed up for. So that's like in the forest tradition, many times we say like facing dukkha, studying dukkha, or like having a sense of patience, being endurant, like being able to sit down even though the knees are aching. It's classical meditation situation. Like almost everybody above 30 will feel at some point that the knees ache. Study the pain, you study how it feels, and the more one does it, the more one feels a sense of like, actually, this is not something unnormal. This is not something I need to push away. And sometimes even the pain falls away in a very, very strange way. It's almost like the quality of awareness overrides the sensory input of the dukkha vedana, the feeling of dukkha that's communicated through the nerves. It seems to be that the mind can just more or less put itself into a bird's eye perspective and say, this is happening, so what? You know, I'm just watching it.